Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of the Rubber Gum Anime Podcast, where I am the gum. My friend August here is the rubber. For the first time, Black Country New Road, for the first time, we are having a guest on this lovely little show on this corner of the internet. We have Jen joining us today to discuss something that we have been talking about for a long time. Our most popular episode, in fact, was about the Evangelion rebuild films. Evangelion as a whole has been something we've talked about a little bit. We went in depth what it is, our relation to it, and the first three rebuild films. Those are very important if you want to know what we're talking about today, because this is, of course, our video on EVA 1.0 plus 3.0, because what are numbers? They're not real. Why even
3.0 plus 1.0?
That's yes.
Plus
thank
1.01. Is that it? Is that the title?
Fucking
I actually don't know.
Sure. Well, Thrice Upon a Time is the subtitle. We need to include that.
That's also the title.
Oh my gosh.
The fourth entry, the final entry in the Evangelion allegedly rebuild saga, which we talked about. We said we were going to discuss it when it came out, and I think I am going to say that we made the smart decision of, we definitely didn't record it sooner just because we're very busy and this is a peripheral kind of thing and we have the normal podcast to do and our lives are difficult. But getting caught in the initial wave of this was, I think, something we needed to distance ourselves from, just because there was a lot of capital D discourse when that movie came out. And if you're of the opinion that we hold, that discourse was not particularly fun to wade through. As a just preliminary thing, I will speak for myself in August and say that in the three rebuild movies, we don't particularly care for them. Our most positive feelings on them are of the first one, and we think that is heavily mediocre, borderline useless, a little bit ugly, and the second one's not much better, and then we hate the third one. But Jen, why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers here, fellow Kentucky Thembo? Please, what are your thoughts on everything that has preceded this? What relationship do you have with Ava and those three rebuild movies that precede this?
I'm changing my Twitter bio after we finish recording this. So I'm Jen. I am now a Kentucky Thembo, as determined by Jake. My relationship with Ava is, I knew of it for years, but because it was so inaccessible in like legal normal ways, I did not watch it until the Netflix dub hit a couple of summers ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which
could have been 5 years ago or 1 year ago. I don't know at this point. Time, it's not real.
Time's not real. But I was taking a summer class in a dorm watching the show with my roommate.
Ideal way
at the
time.
And we got through the first half like pretty sporadically, just because I'm not usually one to binge a show.
Mm-hmm.
But then one day I come home from my class, he comes home from his class. We start from the clip show episode, and by the time the sun has set, we have finished End of Eva.
Ooh,
which is
that's
possibly the most grueling experience just watching TV that I've ever had. And I wonder if that was a mistake. I don't know if Eva is a binge-friendly show in a way that a lot of shows are today. And so maybe I'll go back after this episode is over and just watch like one episode a day just to get the feel for how it is as like an episodic thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the movies, Jake, I don't know if I told you this or not. I haven't seen them.
Well, see, that's the thing, Jen, is that it's so great is that the first two, literally nothing's different about them. It's like there's no difference from the show except for the introduction of Mari, who does not have a character trait and plays no narrative role or significance in the story. And then
there's also I should say they're minor. The second one, people are gonna get mad at us and say it's different enough. And fuck you, first off.
Actually, this Oscar is not the same Oscar.
This is Oscar Shikanami. She's from the Kutra
She doesn't
clan.
have a character arc.
Oh, yeah, we'll fucking get to that.
Anywho, that's for later.
But I feel like I should, because this is my fault that we're doing this, so I should give the backstory as to why.
Oh yeah.
I watched the Ava Rebuild episode. Fantastic, one of your greatest hits.
Thank you. We tried.
Go us.
And when the next movie is about to come out, it comes out in Japan.
Yep.
And somehow, some way, the plot ends up on Wikipedia in English.
Yep.
Don't know who did this, but bless that person's soul. I know nothing better to do than screenshot the last paragraph. We'll get to that. I plan to have Jake read it later.
Oh my god.
I screenshot the last paragraph and send it to Jake. Explain what it is, of course, but then say something along the lines of, what the fuck is this? And we just knew. And like, to address the discourse for a second, because this is interesting. We'll get to I want to say the plot of the movie before we talk about the response to it and how we've diverged from it. But I think a large element as to why this has happened is because the film released on Amazon Prime. Unusual for Hideaki Anno to have a film go direct to streaming like that. Mm-hmm. But it happened. So a lot of people were able to watch it as soon as it was out, talk about it, contribute to the conversation. And we decided that the best thing for us to do to quell the feelings that we were having about this film would be to do this, but have me do it as well this time.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. And thy name is Hideaki Anno. There is really no point in burying the lead here.
This is the worst film ever released.
Hold on.
That's the thing, is that I have gone on record saying this is the movie that I have watched. I've had many terrible experiences.
I need to not drink while you all are talking. I've already spilled this on myself.
I have had some bad experiences with movies over the course of the pandemic, and even since it's technically ended. I think most notably movies like Tenet and movies like Cherry, where I was just assaulted and confused, and to the point where I was so annoyed that and the people who liked movies like Tenet were so present in the cultural conversation that it felt like the world was trying to do me some kind of injustice. I felt like I was in a Truman Show. There was something that felt wrong about the world. And this happened with this movie, except to a far worse degree than it ever has before. We watched this as soon as it came out.
Oh, but I remember this, Jake, because you and I, we were like basically in our DMs that day, like counting down the hours until this movie was going to be released, because we were monstrously excited for this disaster.
And we expected it to be such because the only thing we knew is that it's like, if you know anything about the Rebuild movies, the first two are, borderline recaps of the show. And then the third movie is completely new content. And that's the one that August and I have a strong distaste for. And this is going to build off of that. So naturally, we were just like, well, what the fuck is this going to be? We were theorizing and talking about it. And then we watched it. And naturally, you do it on the night it comes out. I was one of the first people on Letterboxd to write a review for this that was in any kind of depth. It's a long review. And long story short, this movie made me disable the ability for people who don't follow me to leave comment sections of my Letterboxd reviews, because I had so many people responding to what I had to say about this movie, which I prefaced the end of that review with a very heartfelt and sincere look. I'm going after this movie. I'm not going after you. Know a lot of people probably going to like this movie. So you know what? You do you. That's cool. I'm just not on your wavelength. And people elected to ignore that. And I was harassed for a week by someone who created, count it, 3 alternate Letterboxd accounts to come into my comment section and explain that I didn't understand the movie.
I was there for this saga because I was one of your vehement defenders, of course, because this was
60 comments.
Hilarious.
60.
60?
Yeah, it starts out with
I remember this as it was like first happening.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know it was that much. We didn't talk about this.
This is the best way I think to preface this. It's our best friend Thomas, who is also an Ava fan, who has similarly like weird thoughts on the film. El Mayo got to see this. Our friend Morgan, who does not give a fuck about Evangelion, just comments, "Oh dear." Then there's like a couple people who just sort of like share my sentiments, who follow me, and then eventually I get moron, and then I get movie was great, y'all crazy, and then I get into a small argument with someone who follows me, and it's me being pretty like basically this is the best way to lead it off here. It's somebody said movie was great, y'all are crazy. My response.
Oh, I know this one. This one's
and this
great.
Dude says, and I was like, well, thankfully, most of the world agrees with you. That must be nice. Following it up, it does, but I wish I could understand any feeling of distaste some feel for the rebuilds, movies that people love. I feel like they really derive beauty and purpose out of their inherent unnecessariness to the point where they feel like a necessity. This new movie had a feeling of clarity and wisdom that felt potent and essential coming from Anno and these characters so long after its original ending. For lack of a better description, it feels almost like a gift. So naturally, this
I just discovered something very important.
Please share with the class.
I knew that this movie had made it a Letterboxd top 250. I knew that. I didn't realize what it was above currently. Guess where it is first on the top 250. Guess where it is.
Top 100.
Yeah, I was gonna say number 60.
Just scan. It's at 104.
Okay.
Guess what it is directly above.
Is it above End of Ava?
I can't tell. I'm only looking at what's right next to it. But guess what it's directly above? Take a wild shot in the dark.
Perfect Blue.
7.
Okay, EO is number 23, so that's
okay.
Anyway,
I will try.
It's also above, at least in terms of comparable movies, it's above Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay, that's a messy movie, but also that makes me very upset.
It's also above fucking Lawrence of Arabia and Casablanca.
Oh.
And if I keep going down this, I'm just gonna keep saying movie names.
We must.
I just felt the need to bring that.
Must get back to the comment chain.
This is naturally this person who I am mutuals with this person, so I will at least give them the benefit of the doubt. They only just got into Ava and they're a teenager, so obviously they're probably really into it. And so naturally this comment upset me the most because there's just sort of a lack of willingness on behalf of people, because we need to accentuate this. It's like, oh, people really like 3.0 and they like the rebuild movies. People love this movie. Like I have had to scour the internet for dissenting opinions on this movie. This is by several country miles easily the best received of the rebuild movies, considered to be as good by tons of people as EOE or of comparable. Like this is like movie of the year material for some people and longtime Ava fans. So this is where I was coming from at the time. The distaste I feel comes from Ava's cultural evaluation infecting the rebuilds from a fundamental level. These movies are so comically poor at characterizing our leads that I just don't understand how any of these dramatic beats are supposed to land for anybody. I don't know what Anno is saying, why he's saying it at all, and I don't get anything from them because I don't feel anything. And when it's Ava doing all of these things, that's very important. So much of the grace, intent, and lightning in a bottle that the series contains is not here. There's so much action that feels so largely inconsequential that it numbs me. The portentous religious vocabulary feels like I'm listening to a middle schooler thrust importance onto plot devices that do nothing besides get the story from A to B and otherwise have no narrative utility. There's a clarity to Ava and EOE where you understand the story and characters and what Anno is saying about them, himself and his audience. And it's done with sharp technical refinement that feels both purposeful and like he's scrambling to find the right direction to take it all in. Here I have no ungodly fucking idea. I felt nothing when Kaoru died in 3.33. I felt nothing when Rei died in this movie. Whenever something dramatic or sad happens, it's just not reinforced with anything that has any weight. Ava worked because it was a story about people and how their interiority is complex, ugly, and beautiful all at once. I saw many facets of myself in Shinji. I saw the many facets of someone like Rei. I saw Asuka, Misato, Gendo, etc. I understood who they were and what got them there. And EOE, I watched them unravel in the face of annihilation. Here, I see 2D cutouts of characters who do nothing but constantly show the audience the most boring versions of themselves. They are one-dimensional, hold no charm, no appeal, and I spent dozens of hours with them, and there's no excuse for it. And then the rest of the comment section is unholy. I will spare you from it. It's terrible.
All that being said, all that beautiful academia, my response to that comment was, of course, the smell of my ass is potent and essential.
Which I had never felt more pride in you than in that moment. It was something that made me take a step back and go, you know what? This isn't worth it. And eventually I turned off my comments after I got like harassed just because my review of it became ridiculously popular somehow. So I guess I was the person that people turn to. 130 likes. Hit tweet, everybody. But
hit tweet.
That leads us in to, we do unfortunately have to unravel the Gordian knot that is Thrice Upon a Time. And genuinely, I don't know where to start. 3.0, for its many problems, I feel like we could dissect it and interrogate it in a way that made sense. For its baffling choices, we could still do it. This is, I'm like, this is a movie in the same way that like, and this is so not complimentary. Please do not mistake it for one. This is a movie in the same way that something like Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York is a movie, and that it's barely a film. It's filmic devices giving you an autobiography of the man making it. And really, it is, you can only judge its quality by how well those filmic devices are implemented. Like, it's borderline doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like I'm reading Anno's thoughts on, I'm reading Anno's annotations on his own autobiography. Because what this has all been up until this point is that, you know, Ava was this thing that got transformed by disasters that happened that cut certain episodes out, production troubles, having to outsource animation to different studios, and eventually in a complete overhauling of the ending once Anno had a terrible spiral of his own mental health that eventually gave rise to something like EOE. And in that same vein, he's attempted to replicate putting himself into his movie just as much as he did there, again here, plus all the revisionism of the rebuilds. And the best way I can succinctly summarize this movie is this is a 2.5 hour long movie of Anno telling his audience that they need to touch grass.
This is a 2.5 hour IR/I have sex post.
Yes, that as well. It's just like, hey guys, have you ever tried not being depressed and instead finding a really hot babe that you can have sex with to cure your depression?
A really hot babe who will love you unconditionally, even though
and call you puppy,
who has no character traits
at all. And also really important, no homo, not gay. I'm not gay, but if I was, I would want equal rights. I'm not gay. I'm not gay. Not gay. Not gay. Just to make you sure.
The version 90s Anno versus the Chad 2021 Anno.
You've done it. You've broken me.
Here's the thing, and I think what the first thing that really annoys me on a fundamental level about this film is Anno's assertion that he is Evangelion, which
100%. You did it. Yep.
Beyond annoying, because the creative team, because let's make this clear right up front, Neon Genesis Evangelion is not this auteur work. It's not like this one person made it all. Like
Akio on the Blank Check podcast.
Akio Tsutsukawa, Hiroyoshi Yamaguchi, Yoji Inokito are all ridiculously important screenwriters in their own right, who had their own hand in shaping the characters, shaping these scripts, and even someone like Kazuya Tsurumaki had a hand in the directing. So, and the rebuilds seem to completely ignore this facet that Evangelion is not, it's not Hideaki Anno's Evangelion. It is, I mean, this is Hideaki Anno's Evangelion, but Neon Genesis Evangelion, the show, is a collaborative work, as all television is, as all like TV show, film, all mediums are. And Anno so boldly asserts that he is like this sole creative voice behind the franchise, and it's so apparent that's what he's doing, because, and that's what first thing about this film and these fucking rebuilds as a whole that just drives me up a wall.
It's the equivalent of a band member who, like, it's like Roger Waters and Pink Floyd, where at some point Pink Floyd became little more than a backing band to Roger Waters in albums like The Final Cut. That's basically like Anno is employing people to work for him in the sense that, like, they're editors, producers, writers, people who are his backing band. He is the front man now, and there is nothing collaborative about this. This is the auteur thing that people think the original Evangelion is, but decidedly is not.
We've reached the Phantom Menace level of yes men surrounding Hideaki Anno. But I want to make an important clarification. I think it is important to compare, especially now that we talked about the limits of the show's production. I think it's an important comparison to make between Evangelion and a little show you might have heard of called Twin Peaks.
I knew it.
Let me go with this. Did you know I was going to say this?
No, I didn't, but I remember briefly mentioning it in the last episode where I did.
We did talk about this.
Yeah.
So Twin Peaks and Evangelion. I'm going to talk about the similarities for a second. Similarities that I see. Also products of production cycles going very badly. The people behind the original conceit of the show having problems in their personal lives in the case of Anno, in their professional lives in the case of Lynch, that made the show change drastically. A revival decades later that widely believed, well, no, they are the complete products of the people that used to be called the figureheads, the masterminds behind what were, in actuality, heavily compromised products for all of the pros and cons that come with those things. Evangelion, the show, and also EOE, is miraculous in terms of art overcoming adversity, overcoming just any problem that any person in that industry could potentially face. Twin Peaks, however, fell apart when it came to adversity. The second season of that show is mostly ass. Uh, David Lynch comes back for the final few episodes, and it like comes back up from that. But nobody really wants to talk about the time that like Nadine got hit in the head and started going to high school again, or when James left the town and nothing he did added to anything, or anything involving Annie. Which for some reason, why didn't he do anything with fucking Annie? Anyway, the
similarities are.
I mean, that's a
they're
show
uncanny, aren't they? Am I going crazy?
The Return is a show we could create another podcast for, just to dissect that.
It's a great thing to bring that up though, because we have a couple things with Twin Peaks that we don't have with Eva that help us chart the narrative of their construction a little bit better. That being notably the absence of one Mr. Mark Frost, who, essential to the original identity of Twin Peaks, because, David Lynch, known for being that auteur director, which, for the most part, I will definitely say that he is, even though he's definitely a collaborative dude, nice dude, people love working with him. He's got a lot of the same people who work with him. That said, you cannot watch all of Twin Peaks, all of it, Firewalk with Me included, which is like such a direct analog to EOE, and I never really put that together in my head, but wow, it makes a lot of sense. It
really is.
But when you watch Twin Peaks The Return, there can be no doubt in your mind that it's like, wow, this is just the David Lynchy parts of Twin Peaks, and not the Mark Frosty parts.
You also have something important about Twin Peaks that you almost never get in the anime, though, and that is the cast.
That's true.
I don't want to take too much of a detour and start talking about Twin Peaks, but like the characters. I'll find a way to circle it back. The characters in Twin Peaks, because they had to be played by real actors, you had to form a connection to these people. And Twin Peaks has one of the best fucking casts of anything that has ever been produced ever. And when you have something like Evangelion that 20 so years later you remake with the characters being the same, except now they have to be voiced by different people, you lose something. It also inevitably, even if the voice,
it doesn't help that the characters are completely fucking different than they were in the original. Either. No, it
doesn't help either.
It creates a dissonance in your mind that's inescapable. It's why that whole obfuscation where people are just like, oh, this isn't the same Asuka, and it's just like, I'm here to tell you something very important. It doesn't fucking matter. When I am looking at this movie and I see Asuka, I don't see her last name. I see Asuka Langley. No, it doesn't matter.
I see a t-shirt.
There is a like the character design being the exact goddamn same. Like
when they bother to include clothes.
If you no, I mean, if you really want to make these such separate entities, the medium of animation is the most perfect fucking medium for that possible, because you can literally give Asuka jet black hair if you want this to be like I'm serious. Do something to show me that like visually this is a different character.
August, they have an eye patch.
You're right.
It completely changes everything.
You're right. The character dynamics are completely shifted. She also doesn't have clothes. Another way.
See, this is a great lead-in, because we've established from the outset that this is more or less just Anno making a film about his own meta, which is basically what the rebuilds were before. But even more than 3, that's just what this is. To the point where you can take plot points
outside of the show's plot.
Yeah, you can chart plot points in this movie directly analogous to Anno's life after he made EOE, to the point where the beginning of this movie, which I will say we should talk about because it lets me get all of my positive things out of the way, because, I am unfortunately a rational human being who can still pick out some things that can be good in awful goddamn disasters like this that I would deem. And look, I've already done enough apologizing for the fact that I think this movie sucks a fat dick. But the thing is that I still need to elaborate. you people who have 5-starred this movie and who love this movie and who get so much emotional catharsis out of this, I'm not trying to take that away from you. None of us are. That's not the purpose of this.
I'm happy for you.
But like seriously, I'm legit 100% jealous of you because I want that reaction with everything. You know me. You've seen the way I react to art on things like this channel. Of course I want to react that way. I'm me. But the problem is that I can't see it because I have to interrogate it in this very specific way. And I'm not coming at it with outside context. This is just what the movie itself is and what it's bringing to the table. And there's no pussyfooting around it. It deserves to be interrogated too, because just trying to worship anything that comes from Anno blindly, I feel like is an insult to any artist, to anyone who puts thought into anything that they make. It deserves to be interrogated on its own terms. And if you just sort of revel in the person I like made thing that made me feel something, it's like you got to dig a little bit deeper than that. And that's why this is something that profoundly bothers somebody like us. So the movie itself, I think I will just sort of voice everyone here and say that, like 3.0, the biggest step up from the other movies and in general is the fact that visually it is far more compelling than the earlier entries, and in general is a directed film that has ideas. I don't like those ideas, but it conveys ideas, has decent imagery, decent coloring, and the animation itself is pretty solid.
That are entirely unique to it, unlike the first rebuild films, which
it's not useless.
It's not useless, which is
the same way that a shotgun isn't useless.
Yeah. I mean, that admittedly, that can't be said about the opening battle scene to this film, which first thing we must address, because it is the first set of images we see. This is one of the most poorly directed opening sequences ever. The shots just do not flow into each other.
Like even 3's out of context opening battle is like, okay, I mean, I get what's happening. I don't really know why. I don't really know what's happening, what the stakes are, who these people are. But like, I can see that like mech fighting Angel, this is a mess of geometric nonsense.
It's a total mess. And all the while, Hideaki Anno feels the need to throw in random shots of the Eva pilots' asses.
Code Geass levels, frankly.
Like fucking Code Geass trash.
Every character is Karin, and it's just like ass. It's Big Sean. And you know what? You kind of get a reprieve from it when you get the ass shots, because it's like, something I can visually comprehend, but it's just like, I don't care if you know what's happening in this sequence, because even if you can manage to lie to yourself and convince yourself that it's visually coherent, nothing matters. None of these characters, they're all like from the fucking Vila people. We don't know them.
I mean, we know their characters, but we know who they are, but we don't know the stakes. We don't know their personality aside from like vague anecdotes.
And it just goes on.
This is like a 15-minute scene or something. It's if this had been cut, my feelings genuinely might be a little more positive.
I feel that way about all of the action, frankly. All of it, just, especially in the middle. It's really, really fucking bad in the middle. But the beginning gives you a great taste for what it feels like, because like genuinely, it's so white noisy. I forgot that even fucking happened. And then August is saying it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember they were in the little like circle thing and it was around. And,
it's such an immemorable set piece.
All of these movies have that fucking problem. None of the angel fights.
None of the angel fights are cool here. They're not interesting. The set pieces are lame.
They have better animation than the show. Well, I mean, sometimes they have better animation than the show, but like largely they have more money and they can like why it boggles. Like I literally would have taken it at that point. It's just like, just take the animation from the show and like stick it in the movie and it's better. I'm like, the bar's that low,
until
dude.
They actually fucking do that, and it's anyway. That's for later.
Son of a bitch.
I want to jump in on this and connect this opening action scene, really all the action scenes in the movie, to a larger point I have about the show, which is that Eva is not a fucking mech anime.
Ding 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 ding.
After a certain point, it just isn't. I don't
it's
understand.
incidental.
how 30 years later, you're still trying to impress me with how much these characters can blow shit up when that's not what anybody is here for.
You might even argue the fact that the characters that aren't particularly great at blowing shit up is the point.
You know, I guess admittedly, there's one great iconic fight scene in all of Ava. Oh, yeah. And that's the fight scene in EOE that everyone fucking knows what I'm talking about.
Which is terrific.
All the action in Ava is great. Like the fact that they're able to work around like all these characters being shitty at their jobs.
I think the greater point that you're getting at is that the action serves a completely different purpose. In the show, it's a conveyance of an idea. Here, the action is meant to be enjoyed as like cool spectacle action, and it's like, I mean, that's weird and fluffy, and I don't know why it's here, but it's also not particularly very good at that. It's just like fucking Promare came out like a couple months ago. Why the fuck wouldn't I watch that? This is Ava.
Like nobody is coming to Ava to see mech fights anymore.
I mean, it's like, oh man, I watched Twin Peaks to see dudes riding motorcycles. Like,
I
watch Twin Peaks to watch a soap opera.
I watch porn for the plot.
I mean, yes, it's the same fucking thing. You're there for the fucking. Not there for the action. You're there for the action.
Yeah,
but I mean, like that's just the greater thing about like anytime, and it gets worse in the middle of the movie, like between plot beats, to the point where it's like the action itself isn't a plot beat. It's just like Shinji gets like rejoins with the main plot midway through this movie, and then what I can only describe as things happening for an hour.
There's a fleet of Avas. There are Avas that are tiny ships. They call them Avas. They're just like tiny bug ships. They look like Star Wars ships.
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Quite honestly.
Okay, before we get far into like the plot, Jake, I'm gonna have you do what I said I was gonna ask you to do earlier. Just read the plot on Wikipedia.
All right. Okay.
I will ask questions.
Okay. In Paris, a team from the Vila organization led by Maya Ibuki, everyone's favorite Ava character, works on a system designed to restore the city to its previous state, which I'm going to universally just consider that sentence as undo the dumb shit from 3.0. Upon being attacked by nerve forces, because that's still a thing, they are defended by the Wunderfleet and Mari Illustrious Makanami in Unit 08. Mari defeats the attackers, and the Vila team restores Paris, which I guess is supposed to be that action scene. Whatever. Asuka, Shikinami, Langley, Rei Ayanami, and Shinji Ikari, still despondent, I could stop there, are walking across the outskirts of Tokyo 3. They arrive at a settlement of survivors and encounter Toji Suzuhara, Hikari Horaki, and Kinsuke Ida, now all adults. Toji is a doctor and has a child with Hikari, while Kensuke is a technician, and all are friendly to Shinji. Asuka expresses frustration with Shinji, as she fucking always does, force-feeding him. As Shinji slowly recovers, Rei explores the village and settles down working as a farmer. Shinji meets Ryoji Kaji, the son of Misato Katsuragi and the late Ryoji Kaji, in one scene, who died averting the third impact. Rei requires constant exposure to LCL and cannot maintain herself, decomposing in Shinji's presence, and Wikipedia does not elect to say that she kills herself in front of him. This thing that I've just read is the first...
Keep going. We have to get to the end.
Oh, okay.
We have to get to the capitalized words.
All right.
Oh, wait. Oh, no. This sounds...
We have to get to the bevy of capitalized words.
You're right. I should just go through all this and then we can just work our way down. Meanwhile... Oh, wait, no. Wunder arrives to pick up Asuka, and Shinji decides to go with her, despite protests from the crew. Because, Shinji bad. Shinji is placed in isolation because Shinji bad. Meanwhile, Kozo Fuyutsuki, my favorite character, distressed over Shinji's treatment by Gendo Ikari and forcing him to experience the same loss as him, helps Gendo restart Unit 13. I'm not even going to begin unpacking that sentence. In response, Wunder heads to Antarctica. Good sentence. Before the mission, Asuka admits her feelings for Shinji, but that she grew up before him. Shinji apologizes to Asuka for being indecisive in either saving or killing her whilst she was under the control of the Ninth Angel in Unit 03 14 years ago. Asuka accepts the apology and recognizes he is growing up. Wunder is attacked by 3 nerve ships and a swarm of Eva units. Asuka and Mari sortie? What the fuck is that fucking word? I'm so fucking tired. And move to destroy Unit 13 before it can reactivate. However, Unit 02 refuses to attack Unit 13, forcing Asuka to remove her eye patch like a fucking JoJo stand, revealing the 9th angel contained within her, converting Unit 02 into a pseudo-evolved Eva angel
Did you just
hybrid.
forget that this happened?
Unit 13 suddenly awakens and defeats Unit 02 with ease. Moments before being absorbed, Asuka is approached by apparitions of Kaoru Nagisa and her original in the entry plug, revealing her status as a clone of the Shikinami series, which this movie treats as a hilariously brief plot point that is in no way significant at all to the drama. Meanwhile, the Wunder is attacked by a new Eva, Unit 09A, and rendered immobile. Misato and Ritsuko Akagi confront Gendo on Wunder's bow deck, where the latter shoots him to no effect, revealing himself to have transcended humanity.
He became a Chad, you guys.
Gendo reveals that the purpose of the Shikinami and Ayanami clones is to enact the Human Instrumentality Project and enters Unit 13. A determined Shinji asks Misato to let him pilot Unit 01. Sakura and Midori Kitakami try to stop Shinji, but Misato protects him and is shot in the process and takes a long fucking time to die. Misato apologizes to Shinji, saying that she was wrong to blame him and will take responsibility for his actions. For what reason? I still don't know. As she is technically still his legal guardian, fucking 14 fucking years ago. Sure, whatever,
During
man.
a global annihilation, they really care about who holds your papers.
Yep. Mari takes Unit 08 and merges it with Units 09A through 12. A thing that they can do. Inside Unit 01, the original Ayanami clone, and yes, original as in original Ayanami clone, appears before Shinji, apologizing for not being able to spare him from having to get into the Eva, but Shinji says it's all right. Get it? Gendo and Shinji fight in a surreal
that shit's fucking wild.
Universe. And Gendo shows Shinji Evangelion Imaginary, a Black Lilith.
2 separate entities, by the way. Those are
Shinji.
2 separate things. Am I right?
Yeah.
I just watched this movie today, and I can't tell you if those are 2 separate entities.
Shinji meets Gendo, seeing a vision of his past experiences, including how Yui's loss traumatized him. As a result, Gendo wanted to initiate an additional impact for a chance to reunite with Yui.
Not a 5th impact, the additional impact.
Meanwhile, Misato evacuates the crew of the Wunder and sacrifices herself and the ship to create the Spear of Gaius, which gives Shinji the power to rewrite the world. How does any of that fucking happen or make sense? I don't
get to the
know.
epilogue.
Shinji talks with and provides closure to Gendo. To Asuka, returning her feelings and ejecting her entry plug from Unit 13 into Kaoru, who also revealed the existence of a cycle. The cast is trapped in. Kaoru is also visited by the elder Kaji, who helps him understand that his own happiness shouldn't be tied to Shinji's, and accepted his offer to take care of the watermelon garden somewhere with Misato. Finally, after a conversation with Rei, Shinji decides to rewrite the world into one that doesn't need Evangelions. A Neon Genesis, if you will.
Do they say that?
Yes,
I don't remember.
They do.
They
do say that.
He does say a Neon Genesis. I remember that part because it's like my
I just watched
trauma.
this movie today.
Here it is.
And I could not remember if he said that.
Oh, last paragraph. Let's go.
As he's about to pierce himself with the spear of Gaius, Shinji is stopped by Yui and Gendo, the remaining souls of Unit 01 and Unit 13 each, and both take his place as the sacrifice after stabbing themselves with the spear. The failures of infinity are turned back into their original human forms. Oh, good. I was really concerned about those. And restores the Earth into blue, fulfilling Vila's mission. And the spared Shinji then waits on a beach until Mari comes to get him. He then gets transported to a train station where the other children are present as adults, and the film ends with him and Mari leaving the station hand in hand.
It also ends with a weird
I have clinical depression.
It also ends with a weird live action segment set to this song where
this terrible song.
Shinji and Mari are superimposed into like drone footage.
Oh my god, that was just such a fucking funny moment. Because what?
I want to go through my
made the waifu
questions.
real. He made the waifu real.
But she's still 2D. They're both still 2D, and they're just walking around in, like drone footage. Can I ask my plot questions now? I have plot questions.
Please. Oh, go right ahead.
I'm going to start with the recap because I haven't seen these movies. The recap is very important to someone who hasn't seen these movies ever, or even somebody who hasn't watched these movies in fucking 9 years since the last one came out. So in my notes, I have the first movie is all about Shinji making a decision he appears to make instantly, only to keep taking it back.
Yes.
The second movie ruins the best episode of the show, that being Who's Inside Unit 4. You didn't even have to know what I was talking about.
August was very animated about this particular point.
What the fuck is the third movie?
Okay, so
don't even start. I only have one question about the third movie. I'll get to that. At one point, they insert a dialogue line from Shinji, and he says, "How am I supposed to take this in all of a sudden?" I agree. I wrote that. Rei doesn't exist? ? The Doors of Guff ? Can you explain to me what that is?
Okay. First of all, no. Second of all, I can understand if somebody's just kind of like watching the original Evangelion, maybe they haven't seen it or whatever, and they're just kind of like, this show it's a bit heavy-handed with some of its biblical allusions, I can't imagine.
And that was like
how
all
they would
an accident, right?
Basically, I can't imagine how they feel about this, because this is literally like when you're a kid and you try to read the book of Revelations in the Bible, and it's just like stream of consciousness fucking nonsense because some epileptic woman hating weirdo actually wrote it because he got high once and was just like, this is the Bible now, I guess. And then that was what was taken for religious text. And that's what reading any of this is like when you're watching the third movie and they're just like, oh yes, get the spear of Longinus to pierce Ava 3 to be able to sacrifice. None of this bullshit means anything. It's just a bunch of just like I too went to Catholic school and know that Longinus is the soldier that pierced Jesus. I know. I fucking know.
It's like before you read this book right here and all the vocabulary is daunting until you actually read it and it all makes perfect fucking sense. But this, you watch it and it doesn't make any more sense.
Yeah, people will just be like, oh yeah, the fucking the Quetzat Satarak, that.
But no, I have more plot questions. Let me scroll down. I'm trying to get through my general questions. The characters haven't aged because of the third impact, correct?
I think that is the idea.
Do they
the
explain
curse,
why that
that's
it's
right.
the
That's
curse
right.
of the fucking Avas. That's what
the
they
curse
say.
of the Avas. That's
how
right.
could you
explain
forget?
what that means?
There's
No,
no
They
explanation.
didn't put that in the recap.
It's in an offhand line from a side character that goes, no, everyone hasn't aged because of the curse of the Avas, and everyone's like, yes, of course. And it's just like,
and
they
it's
didn't
never
put it in the
explained
recap,
what the
Jake.
curse of the Avas is.
I don't even know what thematically this is supposed to do. Like, what in the fuck can Anno not like? What was he like sitting there in the middle of like scribbling on parchment with an inkwell, just being in the middle of the night, being like, oh god, how can I get past this one writing obstacle? I know. Make it so that 14 years pass, but nobody ages.
If anything, it would be more like cohesive with Anno's thematic purpose if only Shinji didn't age.
Yes.
But
wow, August, it's almost like you're a thinking, breathing human.
I know, right? Like I've got an IQ north of 10.
Okay, they do set up. This is another plot question. They set up very quickly that Rey, they set it up very quickly, as I mean early in the film. I mean, they set it up in a very swift motion that I almost missed the second time I watched it, that I definitely missed the first time I watched it, that Rey needs constant exposure to LCL, but they never explain why, how she's already being exposed to it, or how she can like stop herself from being exposed to it and commit suicide.
I think it's supposed to be. Now this is I am grasping
she
at
hands
the
Shinji the fucking
of straws.
recorder, the Walkman or whatever, and then explodes. Is the Walkman have LCL in it?
See,
what does that mean?
I think that she didn't die because of the LCL exposure. I think she purposefully killed herself to avoid that from happening. But I don't know how. And I also
Wikipedia says
the important thing about that scene is that Rey knew that was going to happen and walked up to Shinji, who she knows is traumatized, and her fucking head explodes in front of him. And it's like, damn, I wonder what this is going to do to the kid who is traumatized, because in the last movie, it ended with him sitting right next to his fucking boyfriend and then Kaoru's head fucking exploding like a watermelon. What do you think that's going to do to him? You insensitive bitch.
Oh, that's true. He saw 2 head explosions.
Nothing anyone does makes any kind of narrative or character sense. It all is just driving forward these plots of big words happening. And when people are talking about, oh, you're not talking about what the movie is about, and it's like so much of this movie is just apocryphal nonsense of big, important sounding words and characters saying them. And I don't know how to tell you all this, but if you just sit there and nod your head, you're a sheep. Why are you letting this be acceptable for you? This is
okay. My next plot
ridiculous.
Question.
One sec. If we're, briefly, while we're on the topic of heads exploding, it must be said that many heads exploded while watching this movie of deluded Ava fans.
Wow.
We get to be mean during this segment. I don't make the rules. Sorry.
My next plot question is just a quote from something that Kaji says.
I'm sorry.
Kaji Jr. Sorry, I didn't realize there were 2
everyone's
movie
favorite
Ryoji
character.
Kaji. Everyone's favorite
that oh
character,
so
Ryoji
memorable
Jr.
fucking character.
Quote, it's a complementary L containment field purification process nullifying unit. And the thing is, I understood what that meant because I was looking at the shot, but that line is just so fucking weird that I couldn't tell what he was talking about.
I mean, it's so emblematic of this movie just tripping over itself to try and keep explaining it. And I'm just like, hey, do you know why?
But it doesn't explain
anything.
Do
you know why EOE is great? Is because it doesn't, every 5 minutes, a character doesn't show up to explain to you all the surreal and trippy shit that just happened. It doesn't say like, okay, and this is supposed to represent the this, and this is the exact same problem we had with 3, where the characters are not speaking in dialogue. They're speaking in the subtext of their own movie. They're just reciting to you what the meta text is.
Jake, I disagree. That's not even subtext. That's just a scientific explanation of saying these are magic pillars that keep the monsters out.
That's like
in Attack on Titan.
That's like subtext. That's like subtext. I don't even understand. Like, that hasn't been invented yet. Anno has pushed the boundaries of reality. That's what the ending is supposed to be. He's pushed the boundaries of reality so hard that only he can truly understand what all of this means.
These are a couple of stylistic questions. I skipped some of these, but I just had to point out these two. Why is Misato dressed like a Pokemon terrorist team leader?
I know exactly.
Not going to be able to unsee that.
That's so funny. That's the best thing ever.
And why is there a title card drop 63 minutes into the film? Does it happen in the other ones?
No,
I don't think so.
This is longer than the previous ones by a huge margin. But about 63 minutes in, there's a title card drop that looks like the normal ones that you would get for an episode, but it's just the title of the movie. This happens an hour in after Ray blows up and they all get back on the ship.
Almost like that part of the movie was entirely inconsequential.
Wait, I think I know why they did that now that you say it. I think it's supposed to be a callback to like the eye catches in the show when it showed 2 title cards. But none of the other movies do that. So what's the point?
You're totally right. I didn't even think about that.
Because they do place the title cards sporadically in the show. Like, they're not always just at the beginning or just after like a cold open. Sometimes the title cards would come in like halfway through the show too.
That's a microcosm for it's because they're deliberately employed in specific places to where they might serve as like a stinger or a beat. They're intentionally placed there within the episode. They serve a function. Here it's just like,
Ray's dead. Now place the title card.
That's just like, boom, now it's serious, even though Ray isn't actually real. And here's the real Ray from the original show, because apparently this is both a remake and a sequel, and fuck you. That's why.
The best episode that did this, in my opinion, was, I think it's episode 2 or 3, Hedgehog's Dilemma, where the title was dropped after Misato had introduced the concept and it had been explained to the audience, so you understood thematically what that meant. But this movie would drop that title card after the scene where Shinji meets Kaji Jr. That's what this movie would do. Because
they would drop it at the beginning just for like nostalgia's sake, but it's not like well placed at all.
Yeah.
My next plot question: did they ever imply before that Asuka has a neural growing inside of her head?
No.
Is that a thing that happens in the third movie?
No, that is at least as far as I can tell a complete fucking ass pull. Like, yeah, okay. I have never in my life, like, there has been one other time where there's one movie in all of existence that gets to use the literal exact phrasing of the word Deus Ex Machina, and that's Donnie Darko, because it knows what it's doing. And then
what a movie! What a picture!
Yeah, it's got a lot of the same themes, and it's got a lot of similarities with Ava. Wonder why I like it. But that said, I cannot think of a more quintessential example of a literal in every sense Deus Ex Machina.
They say that in the movie.
Asuka has an angel in her fucking eyeball.
They say Deus Ex Machina.
I know they
Donnie
do.
Darko, Jake. They're allowed to use the term.
They are, because Donnie Darko.
They're allowed to have it because they say the term.
And it's not because of science. It's because Donnie Darko is a good, thematically coherent movie about confronting the idea of death as you grow older. And this is Hideaki Anno being like, hey, you should get a hot Asian GF. Solve all my problems, losers.
I have a very good thesis statement that I'm going to save until the end. My next plot question. The original form of Asuka showing up would be a cool meta thing if it didn't happen so fast and they never elaborated on it again. But also, what the fuck does it even do plot-wise? How does it even work?
Wrap my head around like anything.
Are there alternate dimensions?
I can't wrap my head around why that's the character design they change. Coming back to my earlier point where that's the character design they fucking alter for no reason. Because now she's like this like kawaii fucking hentai babe. I mean, I'm making a joke out of it, but that's what it looks like. She's a fucking kawaii hentai babe and that's their representation of the original universe Asuka. And I'm so what? Why would you do that aesthetically? Why not just draw it in the style of the old show to visually convey that? Oh wait, we did that with a fucking character already and it was a different character. What the fuck?
I think I know the answer to this one. What is an Eva Infinity? I think it is people's souls. It is the physical. Gendo says this, but I wrote it down as a question anyway because I wasn't sure if I understood it.
There's a lot of technobabble in this dumb fucking movie, in that first half especially. But once you get after that middle portion of the movie, that's basic. Actually, no, it starts in
Bible babble.
The Bible babble in the action part of the movie. That's when it begins to like. I feel like I'm listening to an NPC talk in Dark Souls, where the point of that dialogue exchange is to be, what the fuck is this person talking about? And like you need to go through 86,000 pages and 48 game miles to understand what one oblique reference one character made one time. Like people just vomit out important sounding words, and I'm just like, look, if you know what's going on, great for you. But I feel like this movie needs a fucking strategy guide. And it's not because I don't understand what's happening. In the moment, it's just like visually I can tell. But it's like all these characters are saying these things with these important, and it's just like, I don't know how to tell you that if these characters just didn't say these things, this movie would be better. I don't care that it's called the Spear of Longinus. I don't care that it's called the Big Giant Bible butt fuck. It doesn't matter.
No, you know, this movie should have been done in like deep South Southern accents, because then I would have a real life reference point.
Have Walton Goggins play Gendo.
Walton Goggins play Gendo. We need a version of Neon Genesis Evangelion that is also hillbilly elegy. And that way also, it can kill.
You're pulling out the thing I hate the most. Oh my god. I'm going to the next plot question right now. At the end of the movie, my illustrious what's her name is on the ship with Gendo's secret, not actually his secret lover. I just like to think of it that way. That other old guy.
Yeah, and fucking Grandma Tarkin.
He calls her something Iscariot.
Oh yeah.
What does that mean?
Because Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus.
She doesn't betray anybody.
No, it's actually
she doesn't do anything.
Still favorite Smashing Pumpkins album is Pisces Iscariot. Fuck.
No. Anno's favorite Smashing Pumpkins album is Seer. Let's be clear.
He really appreciates the synth pop direction that Billy was going in. Speaking of megalomaniacs, who I'm in parasocial abusive relationships with, Seer and this movie have a remarkable amount of shit in common.
I mean,
have to listen to Seer now. I'm gonna backtrack.
Don't
just listen to our episode. Don't do it. Don't do it, please. Just listen to Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, or Adore, or fucking Siamese Dream. Anything, literally anything that isn't Seer.
Anything.
Oh Christ! Anyway,
okay.
We're talking about Neon.
We're talking about Exodus. Neon Genesis, guys. I promise. I want to go back to the village for a second.
That's the beginning of the movie in the strictest sense. So I think that's a smart place.
I will give the movie this. Those like 45 minutes after Asuka force feeds Shinji, where like in between scenes of nonsense happening, Rei is just like wandering around and like finding herself and discovering herself again. That's on another level. I'm going crazy because that part of the movie's great.
August and I were watching that movie, and then we were like, at the beginning, we were just kind of like, oh, okay, ho hum, this isn't bad. And then that started, and we were like,
whatever.
Yeah, and then like the Rey stuff started, and we were like, wow, is this actually becoming interesting? Are they writing this character? And then the movie, it's like a fucking punchline. The movie's just like, wow, is this interesting? No, she kills herself immediately. Fuck you.
And that moment is a good indicator for me of when the movie like completely loses me. Like,
100%.
You could come back from that, but they just don't. And so it makes that moment even worse in terms of like betraying her as a character.
Oh, I mean, like, if 3.0 is where Asuka gets the most character assassination, then this movie does that and then some to Rey, which, like, is not only sidelined throughout the entirety of these rebuild movies and just treated like basically wallpaper, is that it comes around and it's just like, oh, no. Not only did we kill this new version of Rey for these movies, but hey, the original Rey, oh, she's right here. Gendo's been keeping her in a closet this whole time, and here she is, and she's gonna come out here and hug Shinji, and she's gonna be the worst CGI thing you've ever seen in your life, this side of unlimited blade work.
She's gonna look like Angela Anaconda, and this is gonna be the movie.
She looks like Andros, bro.
Oh my fucking thinking about the Star Fox Andros boss fight and Angela Anaconda makes me feel like I've been transported back to the year 2005. I'm seeing colors I've never seen before. I love how people are just like, oh, that the CG for Rey in that third act, oh, it's so creepy. And I'm just like, it's not creepy. It just looks like shit, bro.
It just looks awful.
Oh, it's like so you can't. Bad.
There's bad CGI that circles back around to being like appealing just because it's worked well into the movie surrounding it. But like, this is not it.
If you type
a movie with this.
You type in Angela Anaconda and then type in the letter E in Google, it says Evangelion.
What? Why did you say that?
God! Oh my gosh, this is fucking real.
I'm fucking screaming. No.
Angela Anaconda. Oh my god. What the? Okay.
I think it was at that point in the movie where August and I had actually devolved into laughter. Like, I don't think our bodies could respond in any other way other than just outright reacting in such a like primal, like volatile way that it was just us like expelling air from our lungs rapidly.
And yeah, so that was brilliant.
I think if we're gonna circle back to this part, I'm gonna try and be at least a little bit analytical in my dislike of this, and that this part of the movie, what it definitely evokes and what it is successful at evoking is that of Studio Ghibli, which is very, very purposeful. Studio Ghibli, of course, being we've covered some of their movies on this show before, but what one thing we love.
Apparently, this movie is better than Howl's Moving Castle to some people.
Again, that's a movie with a lot of problems, but okay, not gonna get mad about that. Anyway, I'm gonna get mad about this. Is that this part of the movie? It's like even drawn to be like this. Is that it's like the whole fucking Hayao Miyazaki motherfucker loves chores. This is what the characters are doing, is that they're in this compound and they're just kind of like hanging out. They're living, they're doing laundry and shit. And they're, Rey's finding herself, Shinji's doing some stuff, and he's interacting with characters we haven't seen. And we've seen them like age. And like, I'm not sure what him interacting with them and seeing them older does thematically. They don't really use that or take advantage of that in a way that, like, I don't know, anybody would, but he still does it.
Especially since they haven't been around as
No,
much.
It's like they're not characters who've been relevant to the plot, so him having a distanced relationship from them now doesn't really mean anything, but okay, guys.
Yeah.
And like, everything isn't great, but it's at least working in a sort of uniformity that these movies haven't had since. And what it's supposed to be doing is that after Hideaki Anno made End of Eva and all that stuff, and what helped him bounce back was Studio Ghibli little known fact, Studio Ghibli was in fact one of the outsourced animation studios that did help work on Eva in some episodes. That's why some of those episodes early on, you can look and see some of those characters have Studio Ghibli face. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's really weird. I don't know if it was the studio itself or members of the studio that came into work on it, but it was one of the two. And afterwards, Hideaki Anno for a while just kind of helped pal around with Hayao Miyazaki. And sort of like this was after everybody had received End of Eva as being this critical thing, this masterwork, this insanely popular cultural phenomenon.
Was it okay? Backtrack. Was the EOE received well upon
it?
Release?
Was.
I actually don't know this.
It was received well, mainly because it was seen as like a course correction for the show. Even though I think now, is that I think sense. Now people sort of see them both as things that work in synchronicity rather than something that replaces something else. But once that happened, he sort of not like in a directly like mentor way, but he was in fact like he palled around with people from Studio Ghibli, and this was a period for him that was very constructive, that helped him bounce back, that helped him kind of move forward. And then after that, it helped him go do some stuff that he did in like live action movies. He did movies like Love and Pop, all that kind of stuff. So this is sort of directly analogous to this part. And the reason why it's the best part of the movie is it's the only part of it that isn't completely obsessed with his own fucking ego. And it's talking about how constructively hard work helped him move out of a bad place, which the movie does not capitalize on at all and only slightly alludes to. But, you know, it is a thematic idea that is somewhat present. So, I mean, I guess I'll take it.
It's a start.
It's a start. It alludes to that as part of Ray's journey, but
it's the only time that it happens that it doesn't make me want to blow my fucking brains out.
Yeah,
so.
Because Ray is the one who receives that.
Yes,
and then her head
not
explodes.
Shinji.
And I don't know what I guess. And Ray's stuff was all good, but what annoyed me in this segment most was just like this unconditional love Shinji received from everyone. Everyone was like babying this guy they haven't met for 14 years. And it's like, I wonder who this is fucking analogous for. Whose self-insert is this?
And they spent the entire runtime of 3.0 being like, fuck you, Shinji, kicking that bitch when he was there. It's like, this is all your fucking fault, you useless piece of fucking subhuman garbage.
And they bring that back
fuck
at the
you.
end when two different people try to assassinate him because of all of the harm he has done to the universe.
But
yet all these old ladies are just like, look at this
with
cute
this movie's
little boy
ending
that we found.
I can't even. I'm like, it's like looking into the sun. I can't. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But even thinking about this movie's ending, it just makes me spiral even more. Like in the moment, I couldn't appreciate.
Next, like I don't even want to say.
Like, well, I mean, we can pretty much skip the talking about the middle of the movie because it's just an action scene. It's just nonstop bullshit. Like the imagery doesn't like convey anything to me in this part of the movie. Like I don't get anything out of any of this. It's all white noise. It's all TV static.
And it's like it doesn't even have the grace to be a memorable set piece, as we've made the point of already. Like that's the fucking thing. This movie would not be so unbearable if the action scenes were in any way remotely memorable.
Yeah.
But
they've clearly got the budget for it.
They've got the budget for it, but the shots just do not flow into each other. The eye line, like your eyes are constantly darting around the frame because there's no cohesion to like where the like central object, the like focus of the scene
something
is.
The original Eva is fucking outstanding at. Every episode of the show, you can like break down every single bit of that with that eyeline shit. I mean, and it's like, I'm not expecting this to be Mad Max Fury Road, but come on, man. Give me something.
Like, yeah. Oh, boy. But, and I guess there is one thing we need to address, which is this hypersexualization of every single character.
Asuka first and foremost.
Mari second most. And the rest of the cast third. But this
they returned just in time to talk
That's
about
what I get.
sexualizing
I walk
children.
away I walk away. No, I walk away for 2 seconds to get a drink and my fucking internet goes out. I think I'm cursed. I think the universe was telling me no, but you know what? We're talking about Evangelion.
Anyway,
so
this
cracking open a cold one.
So the hypersexualization of these characters is absolutely disgusting.
It's truly like August and I really gave a lot of stuff in the past the benefit of the doubt. We really did. This was something else. Yeah,
anime.
And this is the breaking point.
Gross.
Yes,
I didn't even have to hear this conversation. I'm with you. It's gross. Why is Asuka walking around naked? Why is she force feeding Shinji? Why does fucking Illustrious sexually assault him as soon as he gets back on the spaceship?
No, bro, your hot Asian wife who cures your depression has to grab your dick.
She just shoves her big fucking pussy into his face, and that's the scene.
Oh, it's so funny because it's not
gorilla grip Ayanami.
I mean, I hate to be crass, but that's.
I mean,
what do you want?
Clearly, Anno doesn't. It's just
doesn't.
non. And the thing is that it's just like these are elements that are not absent in the original Evangelion, but the reason that they're there is because it's through Shinji's eyes, and he is a horny teenager. This is happening when it's like from Rei's perspective, and then Asuka just like happens to be there. There's no
sometimes
thought.
from no one's perspective at all.
No, it could be like a complete bird's
Hang
eye
on.
view.
I wrote down a line that supports my point. Somebody says it's either Maya or Asuka. It's Asuka says he doesn't need a lover, he needs a mother. And I'm like, thank you for still knowing what the entire show was about, but not bringing that over into this.
It's also just like fucking. That's the writing approach of this entire all these movies. It's just like every single writing problem. I mean, it's just like when everything you do is a hammer, everything is a nail. It's just like mommy issues. Do you fucking get to the ass? Mommy issues. It's like no.
Asuka does a victim blaming in that moment. Actually.
Oh yeah. another
fucking
great,
disgusting.
I don't care if she's not the same Asuka from the original show. There's no incarnation of Asuka that would do this heinous bullshit, and that it would go completely unexamined. Fucking horse shit. The morals of the characters in this movie truly, like, it's almost intangible in something like 3, where it's just like, I don't really know the moral stances of these characters because everything happening is so exterior to everyone. It's just like when everyone's like, oh, Shinji, this is your fault. I'm just like, is it his fault? This movie isn't conveying to me that this is completely his fault. Like, was that even within his agency? I don't know. And then this movie is just like, hey, what if everyone in it was like absolutely despicable? And it's like, I can't get on board with any of these people. It's just like, Shinji's a fucking wet blanket. He doesn't do anything.
With Rei.
I can get on board with Rei, and then she kills herself. And then other Rei 001 shows up later. But I think to zero in on my biggest problem, and I've been joking about it this whole time, but I am serious when I say it, is that the biggest problem with this movie, and maybe the most infuriating thing about all of it to me, is Gendo. The way this movie.
I want to wait until August gets back, and I will give my thesis statement on this.
Oh yeah,
I'll let you go from there. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah,
but I'm gonna say it out loud.
Please
as soon as August gets back.
Please
but what I will say.
Yes.
What I'll say before that happens is the direction of the voice actors, especially in the second half of the movie, is fucking terrible.
Did you watch the English version or the Japanese version?
Yes, I did. I watched the English version.
We haven't seen that one, so that's interesting.
That would just be me talking. Obviously, I know kind of how dubbing works. You have to make things fit within a shot. The scene where, interesting that we're engaging with two different perspectives that way here.
No, totally. But I'm totally interested to hear what this is.
The scene, most of it is okay. Like, Shinji isn't great, but like, I don't know if it's the same guy that did the Netflix dub, but if it is, he still doesn't sound right. compared to what he sounded in the Netflix stuff. I mean, but when you get to the scene where Shinji, what was I going to say? When you get to the scene where Misato gets shot, all the dialogue comes out so quick in a scene that should be like have a little bit of tempo and tension and pacing to it from a directorial and editing perspective to convey
Jen's talking
like, the
about
drama
the English
between
dub.
the characters. I'm talking about the dub. I watched the dub.
Sorry.
I'm talking about how shitty the voice acting directing is.
Like, there's just so much visual information. I can't imagine how you would even go about conveying. It's just like, we got to condense this paragraph into 2 sentences. So fucking,
But August, I wanted to wait. I cut Jake off very rudely because I wanted to give my thesis statement about this film. I'm gonna turn my microphone off after I say this sentence, and I want you guys to run with it. This movie is about how Anno is turning into Gendo.
Okay. Partially that's what I was sort of getting at, is that my central core issue with this movie, all of it can be boiled down to its most important thing and its most important character, which is not Shinji, it is Gendo.
Absolutely.
The problem with it is that this movie treats Gendo as though he is a redeemable character.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly it, because Gendo's whole thing in this movie is that, like,
my wife died,
and that's what's so infuriating about Gendo in this film to me, that the solution to his problem is the simplest shit in the world. Like, Shinji literally talks him out of it and everything's fine.
It's a literal, like, heart to heart where he's just like, hey, Gendo, I've seen some shit. You've seen some shit. We can meet across the aisle here. Maybe you have you ever considered not? And then Gendo's like, oh, I didn't actually consider it from that
Gendo, have you ever considered bitches?
Yo, I think you're onto something here, Shinji. I didn't account for the fact that maybe instead of the human instrumentality project, I should have instead gotten some pussy.
If I had in my life a sex rag doll who does my chores, I'd be fucking fulfilled. That's what's gonna make my life good.
God, I need me some Dave M pussy so bad.
But no, it's like the end of fucking Guardians 2, because it's all about his stupid little mixtape.
Oh, Christ.
He has that monologue about how he was an incel in high school, and I really want to die.
And
that's where this thesis came from.
Yeah, it's like, first of all, this isn't even the right analog for you. It's like, you're Shinji, you're not Gendo. Second of all, Gendo did all of this. He did all of this, and it's just like, oh, but like we can change him. It's like, no, fundamentally, Gendo is a character who is not meant to be changed.
I'll offer some validity to this thesis in that, yes, you're correct. Gendo did all of this. So did Aoki Anno. The problem is Hideaki Anno has spent 2 hours of this movie still trying to be Shinji.
He doesn't know what his central metaphor is. It doesn't, like, it is so fucking bizarre to me how he's like working through this Shinji avatar, and then on the last second it's just like, oh, but like Gendo is actually like Shinji in the original Ava, and that was me in the past, and he should just like get over it, man.
And it's infuriating because he also like swings back into, because I think the way I think of this is that Gendo is like Anno in the 90s, and this Shinji is Anno present day.
Yes.
Which is how he's able to swing this around. But in the end, it's just like you're talking
Like, where
down...
did Shinji get the mental capacity in the fucking past 20 minutes of the movie?
It doesn't... No,
to talk Gendo out of it.
Ignoring that for a second, because that's stupid and doesn't make any sense. Ignoring that and just going with this metaphor, it's just... It's like, what a way to talk down to like youth, your audience, everything. What a way to talk down and just be like, once you get older...
call it talking down if it wasn't wrapped up in nonsense in the second half of that monologue.
You have a point, but I think there's definitely validity to what August says, and that it's like, to me, what confuses me the most about this movie is that I feel like it's so wrapped up in itself and in its own meta text and talking about itself and what all of this means that, like, if I was somebody who, like, and I'm somebody who likes Evangelion a hell of a lot, EOE, the show, like it a bunch. But if I was something that had it like tied to me as an identity, like imagine if this held the emotional importance to me that, say, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood does. And then this is what if Hiromu Arakawa made the fucking Full Metal Alchemist rebuild, and then this is the message at the end that they convey here. And it's just like, I would be, as someone who loves that original show and that original movie, I would be the most pissed and the most offended, because what he's saying is essentially that it's just like once you've moved past all of this stuff, it's like, when you talk down to yourself, not just from like any perspective here, it's from the perspective of, I'm a grown adult, and because of the acclaim and popularity and success that I have achieved, people have been nice to me. People from other studios have been nice to me. I've been able to socialize. I have had all these advantages, and like, I'm gonna sound like a fucking Twitter or Tumblr teen by saying this, but it's fucking classist. It's that this dude is here who's encountered unparalleled critical and financial success, and he's just like, hey, have you ever tried not being sad? And it's like, dude, this was the point of your work originally.
You made a Godzilla movie, bro.
A Godzilla movie that is about the futility of the machine. Which, like, I don't know how much more on the nose you can get about this shit when it's just like, when Eva is not a show about being depressed. It's a show about being depressed and not being able to do anything about it. And then
it takes the central conceit of like mecha anime, which is like these are cartoons for teenagers, so the protagonists had to be teenagers, and flips them on the head by making that concept completely fucked, which it would be if there were any realism in any of those, you know,
which makes
Gundam,
even
Voltron,
less,
whatever.
Which makes even less sense. When you pull back and you stop viewing this as an analog, it makes even less sense, because it's just like, wait a minute. So you're telling that this kid who's just like, oh, hey, yeah, kid who was my child soldier, just get over it. Like, yeah, what?
I mean, are you kidding? Yeah, that's the fucking thing. When this isn't an analog, it doesn't work on any levels at all.
Yeah, it's worse.
Because you're just lost in a maze of confusing character motivation and confusing plot progression, because without that meta context, there's absolutely zero way to begin to even dissect and understand a word of this.
Mari as a character is fundamentally useless if you do not read her as a direct analog for Hideaki Anno getting married. There's no point to her at all. None. Not a single thing throughout these entire 4 movies. It's just like, oh, it's like, oh, you met somebody and they made your life better. Cool. Maybe to all of the socially disaffected people that Evangelion spoke to, that's not exactly something that they could encounter and that can help them. Like, I'm not exactly advocating for sympathizing with like incels and stuff, but as a depressed teenager who watched Evangelion, like, dude, trying to come at your work with this new added level of nuance is just condescending. Like, that's what you've built to. This is what this whole project has been about this whole time, is so you could go, hey, after I became insanely successful after working my ass off on a complete whim and finding a bunch of really important people who helped me, I became better. So you just do the same thing, I guess.
It's the growth of a YouTuber who's been gone for a year after a Twitter meltdown and finally comes back.
Oh god, that like throw up.
It's like I did all of this while I didn't have to work.
I mean, like, even if you don't interpret it as condescending, that's where the movie loses me, is that I don't know how else to view this. It's like supposed to be this moving on thing of like Anno finally breaking free from Evangelion. And like, look, I get that this has followed you for a while and the original maybe didn't go the way that it did, but that's the reason why people like it. It ended up being something great because of its lightning in a bottleness. And it's like, he's supposed to, like, he's getting this catharsis out of a chain that he wrapped himself in. Like, nobody made you make these, man. I'm sorry, but like, I get the idea of wanting to go back and retouch your original work because you've grown as an artist. I do. But you know what you really should do when you do that is that you make something new. You make something better. Because if you're somebody as prolific as you are, I mean, you're making the fucking, like, you can do anything now. You funded
what
this
is he
entire
doing now?
project.
Is he doing a Voltron? Not Voltron.
Ultraman? Yeah, he's got an Ultraman movie coming out.
And he's also got a Kamen Rider movie coming up.
And those are things that he can work within the established confines of and do a lot of the stuff that he's trying to do in this with like an added level of maturity.
He did the same thing with Godzilla.
He doesn't have to have the baggage of Eva tethering him to want to do this new message that he feels called to. And the fact that he does, it's just like, I'm sorry, but like, this is your own fault. And
I would rather
upset.
see a documentary, a fucking YouTube video, even a YouTube interview where he just says all of the things that he's feeling that he clearly puts into this film.
It would be a great documentary.
Have to watch these 4 movies. It would be a great documentary.
It would be a fascinating one. I would watch the shit out of that. It wouldn't even have to be like highly
The Art
edited.
Life, but for Hideaki Anno.
Oh my God, you've gone full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. We're back to David Lynch.
See, and you know, that's the thing, is that like I also do have an unpopular opinion about Twin Peaks: The Return. But for all of that, my issues with Twin Peaks: The Return is that it's still David Lynch. Like David Lynch
raising his hand.
David Lynch isn't like actively antithesis his old work. He is building upon it. He's building upon it in ways that I don't particularly work all that well. But he's
antithesis it. I don't want to get too analytical about.
Yeah, we could do our own podcast.
Twin Peaks.
I can't talk about Twin Peaks too much. Don't get me started.
Twin Peaks: The Return podcast coming later this century.
Yeah, but it's still something where he's able to put forward the things that make him a unique voice. Like, he's not shackled by the fact that it is Twin Peaks. Like, that's the thing, is that Twin Peaks: The Return couldn't be anything else other than Twin Peaks: The Return. It couldn't be a new show that he worked on that you need the iconography of those characters and those themes and those images and the way they intersect. You need those things. You need Laura Palmer to tell that story. Regardless of how it's used but fucking Anno doesn't need Shinji. He doesn't need Gendo. He doesn't need Misato, and he doesn't need Asuka. And you know, want to know why I know that? It's because he doesn't use any of these fucking characters other than Shinji and Gendo. They're all just there.
No, I mean, he could create a completely new IP that was one movie getting at the same thematic core and far more cohesive. It could have been fucking 3 hours long, let's say. And I think because, I mean, I get he has ideas knocking around in his head somewhere. It's just the lack of focus, the dedication to this fucking tired Evangelion imagery, this big
fucking shot. I'm sorry. The shot they recreate from EOE with Shinji doing the thing with his face in front of the piano. I screamed this time. I knew it was coming, and I still was so frustrated with it. In that sense, it fucking reminds me of what the hell is it? Rise of Skywalker, where it's just like,
oh my God,
this fucking imagery.
It's come full circle.
It's just
to everything we were talking about.
It's just dog shit that's been. I've seen this shit already. I've seen this point made already. It's tired. I don't give a fuck anymore.
And it feels like a hollow sellout of what the point that it already made. It's like, because and you know what, that's a good point, because what is the fucking movie I see everybody on fucking Twitter who watches these movies compare Ava 3 to, is that they compare it to The Last Jedi. And every time they do it, it makes me want to die. It makes me want to unspool my intestines in front of me and harakiri myself, because these things have nothing in common. They're not deconstructions. They just talk about their own metas a lot. It's different, except one of these things remembers to have a story and characters that function outside of that meta. This ridiculous exercise in masturbatory indulgence of just like, this is what Evangelion really means. And it's like, I know what Ava means. You told me that in a movie that came out 20 fucking years ago, and you didn't need to have characters explain it to me. You did it with images, you did it with editing, you did it with the art of filmmaking. And instead you have this long, portentous, like, 3 and 4 are the only movies that I feel like he actually wanted to make, because they are the only things with any value to say. And even then, 3 is just a bunch of elaborately constructed metaphors to just tell you what you already know. 4 is the only thing that contributes any new, meaningful thematic content to Evangelion as a whole, and every bit of content that it has is completely superfluous in its own meta. I don't understand what people find cathartic about it, because it's just like, I feel like he could have written this story to conclude in any way or any drama for this all to happen, and then as long as Shinji got a happy ending, it feels like they would have all been satisfied, because I don't understand what people tangibly feel from this. It's like, oh, I see things that I vaguely recognize happening. Okay, sure, but like, what does it mean? Like, you have to have like communicative filmmaking. You have to have.
I've
like,
never seen anybody praise the action in this movie,
no.
which is weird, because that makes up a bulk of the runtime.
Yeah.
How people don't think that it, like, I don't understand how they think like that this could be like, oh, I give it like the universal 4.5 and 5 stars mystify me, because how you can't give this a movie a high rating but also just be like, hey, this has a lot of problems, and a lot of it doesn't really ring true to me. Because you know what, I'm that way with a lot of movies. You know what, Jen and I, we saw a movie, we saw Malignant, we saw James Wan's Malignant. You know what, that movie is goofy and has so many fucking problems, and it's so silly and
it's
dumb,
stupid,
and I love it.
I love
problems.
We had an amazing
but when
time.
you have an orchestral interpolation of Where Is My Mind playing, and like 4
after someone
different
says
times,
I'm adopted.
I've been meaning to see this fucking movie. This sounds
August, you're gonna give that movie 2 stars, and you're gonna enjoy all of it. So I can highly recommend it. But that's the thing, is that I'm very much aware of the fact that that has significant problems. I've watched that movie 4 times this year. It has not gotten less entertaining, but it's also not trying to like, it's a movie that's just like, it's got like a central chord to it. It's not trying to say anything terrifically complicated. I feel like this movie is so dense and so messy and so unclean that it's almost uncriticizable from the people who like it, because it's so impenetrable that any defense or attack of it feels insubstantial, because like people are just like, you just don't get it, and I'm like, I need you to explain to me what I'm not getting, because clearly I understand what this movie's trying to tell me, and I'm relaying it in information to you. So do you disagree with my interpretation of it? And if so, what is the movie saying, and how is it saying it? But I'd like to point out that
any other way,
as subjective as art is, film language and cinematic language, it has a precedent. It's like law, is that all of this has a precedent, and that these images aren't just these intangible whoozlewatsits that you can assign any meaning to. They have meaning. Okay, they intersect with each other and they go together. That's what's called a movie. You relay a series of sequences and images together, and you extrapolate an idea from it. And I simply, like, I just feel like you could replace this with television static and then a title card at the end that says the end of Evangelion. And I feel like people would react the same way to it. And I know that's not the way they're doing it. I'm not trying to discredit people, but that's how you all make us feel. Because there's just no attempt to engage with this.
See what Anno is trying to do, and they love it. And like, I get it. There's a good idea here. Even
certainly
like stuff we've compared this to, like The Return, doesn't interrogate itself. The Return interrogates itself very thoroughly, but doesn't interrogate itself in the same way
too thoroughly
as.
It's the same problem as this
Twin Peaks
podcast later
We're
this
gonna
century.
do a fucking Twin Peaks episode.
I'm so down for that, honestly. I'm not
later this century. It'll happen. Don't
later
worry.
this century.
Just because maybe the three of us and like Morgan are the only 4 people alive who feel that way about Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
I understand what it's trying to do in terms of like interrogating Anno, trying to interrogate his own past.
Oh, totally.
As a creative person.
It's just that he's so biased, he can't do it in a way that feels cogent.
Exactly. And like at the end of the day, it's barely a movie. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's not a functional product.
I just don't
it's function over form. It's what you guys talked about in the last episode. It's function over form.
And I just don't get at all people who enjoy this pure function type stuff, because when I see this, when I watch this movie, I see just despicable, unpalatable self-indulgence for the purpose of just conveying an idea in the most utilitarian way possible. And
you would get the same value out of a TED Talk. That explained all of the concepts.
You get the same value out of reading the Wikipedia synopsis
without a 2.5-hour movie behind it. If Hideaki Anno gave a 20-minute TED Talk and said, "I feel more like Gendo than I used to feel like Shinji back in the day,"
that's a fascinating insight.
I would fucking cry.
Make it a movie. Yeah, exactly. I'd just be like, "Wow, that makes me sad. Please don't make that a 3-hour-long movie." And but August, you said that this is function over form, and you said that it's utilitarian to the point where it ceases to like be, and it's like and that's the thing, is that what have August and I said that we love time and time again on not just this podcast but on other podcasts as well? We love progressive ideas, we love maximalism, and we love utilitarianism. What we don't love is when you forget to have a fucking structure when you're capitalizing on those things. You need a foundation. You need a solid thing to build that off of. You need a skeleton, otherwise it's limp flesh.
There are 3 things I've seen this year that have completely confounded me. Well, 4 things, but one is an album. I'm going to talk about movies here. 3 things.
I gotta ask what the album is later.
Fucking Injury Reserve. That's the album. Anyway,
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's understandable.
This movie, The Amusement Park, the George Romero lost movie that was dug up.
Sorry.
And old. And old.
You both have seen that and I haven't. And I feel like
I am Night Shyamalan. August, let me talk. I promise this will make sense.
No plans.
I started to find what connected all 3 of these things, but they all made me feel some type of way I haven't felt about any media I've watched throughout my life, at least stuff that I've experienced for the first time throughout my life. And I think what it is that I feel my own life before me when I watch these things for very different reasons. With old, it's general. Like, the movie is about aging. I had a fucking existential crisis in the theater watching that movie. That has nothing to say about its quality, even though I think it's a pretty good movie. But like, my reaction to it is beyond anything I could say about its quality or its execution of its central idea. With The Amusement Park, similar things. I was just like, I've been obsessed with Romero for years, and now I've handed this thing in my lap that should have existed for almost 50 years at this point, but nobody was able to see. That's fucking wild. That makes me sad. And this is just like, I remember I remember 2 years ago when I watched Evangelion for the first time, how fucking depressed I got. I watched this, I feel depressed in a different way.
Yeah. Oh, this does raise an excellent point, because like I don't currently, like, I gave this a half star because I'm being honest with you, because
I did not rate any of those three things, by the way. They are beyond that fucking level of comprehension for me. I don't even want to rate this after we've had this discussion.
No, I
watched it a second time.
That's what I'm saying, is that after a while I've realized I can't rate this because I don't like, this isn't a movie. This is an emotional exorcism for Hideaki Anno. It doesn't it doesn't conform to any, like, that's the end of the day. What I have to concede and step back one to remind myself that I'm saying is that this movie has no preconceptions about trying to obey to any traditional kind of structure or whatever. This is pure Anno exorcism. And if that's a wavelength you can get on, then I suppose that's a wavelength you can get on. But for me, I'm a bit lost in it, and I'm lost in the elements that feel the most misguided. And frankly, it's a movie that I almost find to be like misanthropic, nearly. Like it's so divorced from any kind of tangible reality that it does make me sad, because it's just like, it makes you like, oh God, we're going full circle to this is just what Morgan had to say about Billy Corgan when we reviewed the new Smashing Pumpkins album, is that I feel bad because it's just like, this person who made this thing that meant so much to me and so much to other people, I have to just step back and accept the fact that he's not the emotionally intelligent or he's not the person that you have idolized in your head as the guy who made the thing you like. He's a real flawed human being who fucked up, and confronting that is always difficult, and confronting that for me is very difficult. And in this way, it makes me feel uneasy. It makes me feel queasy. I don't like it. It's like forcing you to see someone as a flawed human being in a way that is completely different than the way that you made him see him that way in End of Eva. It's like you see him as a three-dimensional person who fucks up like a lot of people do, but fucks up in the unforgivable, ugly way that a lot of people do. But in this, it's just like, oh, you've gotten older and healed from that experience, but in a way that makes you completely unrelatable to me. That's depressing. I feel like shit. Oh God.
Yeah. We used to see Anno he used to see himself in every character in Eva, and now I only see himself as the guy who tried to blow up everything.
Yeah, it's like that's the tragedy, though, is that it's like, I realized I'm kind of like Gendo, but now I'm Shinji, and it's just like, no, but you still are Gendo.
Yeah. I guess if I may give my kind of own kind of winding down thoughts on this,
please.
What this made me really interrogate in a very similar way to Jake was my relationship with Hideaki Anno. And really what I interrogated was that I don't give a fuck about Hideaki Anno, quite frankly. That's what I took away from this film, because, and I don't mean that in a negative way, in like a mean-spirited way. Let's be perfectly clear about that. I mean that in the way where a younger 14-year-old, 13-year-old me in middle school, depressed middle schooler who felt like all of his friends weren't connecting with him, they didn't understand him on an emotional level, who had thoughts of suicide, that me connected with Hideaki Anno and the work he made. But now that I'm 19 and a college student, I've come to the realization that I didn't connect with Hideaki Anno. I connected with Evangelion. I connected it with the show. I connected with the people, plural, who made it. I connected with the totality of it. There was not one person in that show who I was like, there was not one person behind that show who was more or less central to the final product, because that's what made me love that show, and what makes me detest this film is that at the end of the day, I'm seeing the strict soul narcissistic vision of a creator who has been lost so far up his own ass that he can't create a coherent, cohesive, or functional film, frankly. And I'm just saddened because I know I'm gonna watch Shin Ultraman. I know I'm gonna watch Shin Kamen Rider. Because, quite frankly, I'm still so dependent on Anno. Despite the fact that I know I've grown up, I know I'm a different person than I was, there is still something I owe to the people who made this show deep down inside me that's never truly going to leave me. And that is my dilemma. But unlike you two, I do not have any qualm with rating this. Full on, no question. 1 out of 10. I despise this film. I never want to watch it again.
You know,
I watched it again.
I'm sorry.
Good for you. I'm sorry.
August, in your, first of all, well done, well put. I have discovered my feelings through it, and it's exactly what you said. It's that if I can relay, if you want to disagree with any of the things that I've said, but the one undeniable truth that I think the three of us all agree with and represents our point better than anything because of this movie's existence is that art, once it's created, it's not the creators. It's not anyone's other than whoever consumes it. Once it is there, it's there. And when you embrace it, you embrace that vision, you embrace what got it there. And the people who, and not the people, but the work that they put into it. And the undeniable truth here is that this is Eva, but actively renouncing the idea that it is a collaborative effort. This is one person from that original team, and it is sabotaged to be something that it was never supposed to be. And you can argue all you want, but I think that remains the core thing that is inarguable, is that Evangelion and Anno's Evangelion are two completely separate things at this point. And I simply do not like Anno's Evangelion.
Yeah.
I think my final words, if you take one fundamental complaint about this film, it is that the characters, who so many fans of Eva value over the action, over the iconography, over the fucking plot, it's the characters. Like that's why people debate over EO versus 25 and 26, or even whether they should both exist together, is because one is more character focused and one is more plot focused. And like these characters, argue all you like, I hate to be that dismissive, are not the same. To circle back and post-credits scene the hell out of this and talk about Twin Peaks one last time.
Might as well commit.
Say what you will, Jake, in our episode that we will inevitably do after
Oh yeah,
discussing this
you've
so many
convinced me
times.
that it's an inevitability at this point.
Coming sometime before the end of the universe.
Yeah, the heat death of the universe, maybe.
Sometime before the inevitable heat death of the universe, when we record this episode about Twin Peaks, I know we will connect and we will talk about this film incessantly while we talk about it. Is the characters. You do not get Twin Peaks without those characters, but the difference is that those characters have to change because they are embodied by real people who age and who die. Which if we get around to talk about Twin Peaks, I'm sure we will elaborate on further. But with this, animation offers you a degree of control. Hideaki Anno can be on his fucking deathbed and Asuka can still be walking around naked, but it will not be the Asuka that we knew in End of Evangelion.
And that is 1 year shaved off of August's lifespan.
Well, why stop now?
And I think to close, the reason we talk about this with such reverence is because it means it's an important thing to a lot of people. It's a foundational, big thing, and that's why you tackle it with you put your whole pussy into it, as we have, but like mentally. And I'm a person who's of the belief that as long as you get the characters right, you can put them in the messiest fucking story imaginable. And if those characters are still good and compelling the whole way through, you got a good story, no matter how messy it is. These characters ain't good, so this story ain't good.
All right.
Please subscribe to the Jams and Tea channel, where we sometimes don't go on existential monologues and lose our minds about cartoons made for 16-year-olds, maybe sometimes. Anyway, please tune in to the inevitable us reviewing the new World is a Beautiful Place and I'm No Longer Afraid to Die album, where I'm definitely going to cry 7 times. It's fine. I'm fine. Anyway, on an actual note, do we have anything seriously to promote after this? Because boy howdy, it's been a journey, fellas.
Well, I mean, if you're still here, first off, I'm impressed.
Hello, me in the future watching this.
Hello, me in the future. Holy shit.
Yeah, I know, right? You get to communicate with yourself. It's like Anno, full circle.
Yeah.
See, I can do it too, Evangelion fans. Yeah. Worship me, witness me. Mad Max Fury Road, good film.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have anything serious to promote in my life. But
just watch our YouTube channel, I guess, if you think we're tolerable.
Yeah, Jen, do you have anything?
College is getting serious. As such, I'm not doing as much serious film writing as I used to.
Follow Jen on
if you want,
Letterboxd and Twitter, though, because I always look forward to their insights.
That's where I'm at. I'm at Twitter and Letterboxd. Maybe I'll get more serious one of these days. Maybe I'll get more serious about Dope Sick, which Jake and I were talking about earlier, but I just thought about.
Heyo.
I will definitely try to get more serious about that. Michael Caine.
Oh God, not me invoking idols. This is how you know I've lost my mind.
Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.